They were right there, out in the open, and the silence around them felt wrong in a way that made everyone stop breathing. No calls, no movement. Just two small shapes on the ground where nothing small should ever be left alone. One of the rangers lifted a hand without thinking, signaling the others to freeze. Not because of what they saw, but because of what they didn't. There were no tracks circling the area, no warning sounds, no sign of protection, only the cubs. They were lying close together, pressed into the dust, their bodies barely moving, eyes closed, too quiet. Someone whispered, "Don't move," not because they were scared of the cubs, but because of who should have been there. And wasn't. The air felt heavy, the kind of stillness that comes right before something happens. One ranger slowly crouched, careful not to step closer. He scanned the grass, then the rocks, then the shadow line where the light dropped off. Nothing. No lioness, no sound, no warning, which made it worse. Because lion mothers don't just disappear. The cubs made a small sound, not a cry. More like a breath, trying to be one. That's when the first question hit. How long had they been alone? The sun was already climbing. That meant time had passed. Too much time. Another ranger glanced at the sky, then back at the cubs. If the mother didn't return soon, the heat would take over. And if something else found them first? No one finished that thought. They didn't touch the cubs. They knew better. But standing there felt just as dangerous. One step closer could trigger something. One step away could seal their fate. The radio crackled softly static, then nothing. The team exchanged a look. The kind you don't forget. This wasn't supposed to happen. One ranger whispered, "What if she's dead?" No one answered. Because if she was, then the next decision would change everything. They backed up slowly, creating distance without turning their backs. Every movement was measured. Every sound felt too loud. The cubs shifted again. One pressed closer to the other. Still quiet. Still alive. And still alone. Then the grass behind them moved. Not from wind. Not like before. This was heavier. Closer. The ranger in front felt it before he saw it. That pressure in your chest when something is watching you. He raised his hand again. This time higher, stopped. No one breathed. Then she stepped out. Not fast. Not loud, just there, the lioness. She stood low, her body angled, her eyes locked on them. Not on the cubs. On the humans, no roar. No charge, just a stare that felt like it was weighing every choice they'd ever made. One ranger slowly lifted both hands. Another took a careful step back. The cubs didn't react. They stayed quiet. The lioness's gaze flicked to them for half a second. Then back to the team. That's when it hit. She knew they were there. And she hadn't stopped them. Which raised a new question. Why? She stepped forward once. Then again, close enough now that the details were clear. The tension in her shoulders. The way her ears turned, tracking every sound. But still, no aggression, just control. One ranger whispered, barely moving his lips. She left them, not by accident. On purpose, the lioness reached the edge of the disturbed ground, lowered her head, smelled the air, then she looked at them again. Not angry, expectant. That's when the realization settled in. She hadn't abandoned her cubs. She'd hidden them, left them where they wouldn't be detected, where their scent was low, where predators wouldn't expect them. And then she'd stayed, away, pulling danger with her, including the humans. The cubs shifted again. One made a tiny sound. The lioness moved instantly. Not toward the rangers, toward the cubs. She stepped into the shallow, nest and curled around them, her body forming a wall. The cubs pressed into her without opening their eyes. Safe, the tension broke in a way no one spoke about. Shoulders lowered. Breaths came back. One ranger felt his hand shaking and didn't know when it had started. They backed away slowly now. Not because they were afraid, because they understood. This wasn't a rescue. It was a moment they were allowed to witness. From a distance, they watched her settle. One cub draped across her leg, the other tucked under her chest. She kept her head up. Eyes on the horizon, still guarding. As the team moved farther away, the grass closed behind them. The clearing looked ordinary again. Too ordinary. By the time the sun climbed higher, there was no sign anyone had ever been there. No footprints. No movement. Just heat and silence. But none of them forgot what they'd seen, because sometimes protection doesn't look like staying. Sometimes it looks like leaving at exactly the right moment and knowing when to come back.